Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at the promise in JavaScript, what it basically is, and the instances where we're using it in the code. So here we go.
Alright, so today we're going to be looking at a promise in JavaScript because we're using it in our program. So first I'll just tell you what it is shortly. So the definition is basically an object that will produce a single value sometime in the future. So it's basically like a promise is like, a normal promise in English. It has three stages. Like one is that if it's successful and one is that if it's not. So if it's successful, that means it'll produce a resolve value. And if it's not successful, then we'll give you a reason as to why the promise failed. So if we take the example that you are at a restaurant and you want food. So then you go and tell the waiter that I want food. The food is obviously not instantly available, like sometimes it is, but like most of the time it's not. So in that case, the waiter, in one sense, promises to make me that food. So then there's three different situations. One, that the promise is pending, basically that we could say the chef is cooking or like your food is being prepared. One other situation is that the promise is fulfilled. That comes after it's pending, that he gave me food. So the pending can be short or long depending on what's happening. And then one is that the project is rejected. So if we say that he doesn't have the ingredients for, or like if they're out of that, they don't have the ingredients to make that food. So these are the three different situations. Like if you look at a promise in a more real life example. So here we have either promise is successful or it's not. And the pending is basically a situation between when you ask for it and the result. So you can say pending is a situation, but it's a temporary one because in the end it's either going to be fulfilled or it's not. It's not going to stay in pending. So that's why we can say that there's either successful or not successful. So we're using promise with dot then. So it's mentioned about 9 times, so we're going to be looking at it in the code and where it's used. So here we have get nearest gymnasium, like the latitude and longitude. So when in the front end, we basically, like the user enters, for example, 10 kilometers from where I am. So then it wants to get the latitude and longitude of the nearest gymnasiums, so it can display it for you. So then there's a promise here that if the response is okay, meaning if everything goes successfully, then it's okay. Then you get like the response JSON. But if the promise is rejected, like if, for example, it's not getting access somewhere, or like if the backend isn't running, then it won't be able to give, or something like that, then it's going to give a reject. And in that case, it's like a console error. So this is basically one place where we're using promise. So we have these. Then here again, we have promise. This is when we're getting the school names. So again, while we're getting the school names, then it can either go okay, like you get the school names, you get everything about the school. So it's basically like get, that's why. And either that or it's like rejected. So then if data.length is 0, so this is basically equal to 0 or equivalent to 0. And after that, yeah. And then over here we have promise. Over here, if I find the function, yeah. So here we are using promise, and this is for the render gymnasium data. So if it goes okay, then yeah, then it's fine. And if it doesn't, if it gets rejected, then you basically do like render gymnasium data. So if I just open that, yeah. So render gymnasium data, that's what's going to go to. And then here we have the error, that console.error. But promise is basically like a promise if it's basically successful or if it's not. And then it has several benefits. For example, you can have like cleaner code, since promises can make the code like more like involving many asynchronous operations. It can make it more simple. And you get improved error handling. That promises can make it easier to handle errors that can occur during like asynchronous operations. So that's basically what a promise is and how we're using it in this Gymnasium project.